write as an answer.
Does that mean that they don't have double circulation?
Do you remember the other day when I was explaining you double circulation? I told you for the fishes they have two chambered and amphibians they have got three chambered. It's only in the amphibians and reptiles three chambered. It's only in the fishes and in the mammals that we have got four chambered heart. So now when we are talking about why in fishes there is single circulation, this is called single circulation because they have got two chambers. The blood will enter into the auricle, go to the ventricle, from the ventricle go out to the body again. Again from the body enter the auricle, go to the ventricle, from the ventricle go to the body again. So that is their scheme of circulation. Right. Blood goes only once to the heart in fishes, right? Fishes have two chambered hearts. Fishes have two chambered hearts. Fishes have two chambered heart. Fishes have two chambered heart, comma. Blood circulates. Blood circulates in one single pathway from the body, one single pathway from the body to the heart and back to the body parts. And back to the body parts. Full stop. Next line. The deoxygenated blood from the body parts enters the auricle deoxygenated blood from the body parts enter the auricle. What is the other word? You can write atrium also. Enters the atrium, comma, atrium ki spelling ATRIUM. Atrium goes down to the ventricle, and is pumped from the ventricle to the body parts. Pumped when the ventricle will contract. Pumped from the ventricle to the body parts. Full stop. In this method of single circulation, supply of oxygen to the tissues is lesser as supply of oxygen is much less now. Supply of oxygen is lesser as there is mixing of the blood in the heart. Now this, for the give reason, you don't have to write actually so much, but I gave you get this question for 2 marks also. Describe single circulation in fishes. You have got a small paragraph in your book. So for that, this answer is sufficient to write. But if it is give reason, then give reason is basically just one line to write down. Give reasons are not to be written so elaborate. Give reason 1 to 2 sentences, you should always wind up your answer. Then for a specific give reason answer, then how much should you write? No, for give reason only 1 to 2 lines I said. This is an answer that I gave you for 2 marks when you are asked. Describe single circulation in fishes. So I gave it together. But say suppose you only get this, actually this question, give reason. Blood goes through the heart of the fishes once because they have got two chambers, one auricle, one ventricle. The blood from the body enters the heart, goes to the auricle, ventricle, and back to the body organ. So this much only we will write. The entire explanation that I have asked you now to write, no need. Number C, plants have low energy needs. Now the transportation of the plants little bit left. We have to discuss that also. Plants have low energy needs. Why?
Because they don't have any form of locomotion.
They don't have locomotion. Remember, when we are talking about does the plant require energy? Yes, it requires energy. Yes, it requires energy. Why does the plant require energy? To transport. Plant require energy majorly for transport. Transport of what? Transport of water, minerals, and transport of the food. So plants basically require energy for these two processes. Apart from the growth and the giving rise to the food flower, apart from this process, cell division, transportation of water, minerals, and food is a major process in the plant which requires energy. But even then, I talk about a big plant. I talk about a big plant as compared to our body weight or much more than our body weight perhaps. Even that plant has got an energy required much lesser than our body. I will talk about a particular plant like the banyan or etc., such type of big plants, and compare our body or compare the body of a bird or a fish, which has got more energy requirement than the fish. The bird has got more energy requirement as compared to a big plant, big tree. Why like that? Because the plant may be very well carrying out the process of transport, but since it is not locomoting, is it changing positions? No, it is not. Since the process of movement from one region to another is not there, the energy requirement is as it is much lesser. For a small bird, for a small mammal, the energy requirement is much, much more because the process of contraction of the muscle is a major process which is happening. Now that you are sitting and writing, there also so much of energy requirement because you are constantly allowing your muscle of the hands and the fingers to contract. So the energy requirement is so much. So what are we supposed to write down here? The major concept is the plants do not show any process of locomotion. Write on that question. Write on that question. Plants have low energy needs. Plants have low energy needs. Write that question first. Done. Now we write on the answer. Energy requirement for a plant is much lesser than an animal. Energy requirement for a plant is much lesser than an animal because energy requirement for a plant is much lesser than an animal because plants do not show the process of locomotion. Plants do not show the process of locomotion. Take out the last question there. That is number 25, the first one. Why do ventricles have thicker walls than atria? Write down that question. 25(1). 25, sum number 1. Done?
Yes, ma'am.
Write down. Ventricles have thicker walls. Ventricles have thicker walls because ventricles have thicker walls because the force of contraction, ventricles have thicker walls than atria because force of contraction of the ventricular wall, force of contraction of ventricular wall is greater as they have to pump the blood away from the heart, as they have to pump the blood away from the heart. In contrast to the atria, which pumps the blood only to the next chamber. In contrast to the atria, which pumps the blood only to the next chamber. Understood what you have written?
Yes,
And next you write down the answer on your own. When a person gets injured, blood leaks at the site of injury. How is the leakage of the blood stopped? A process of this is name platelets present in the blood. Write 2 sentences for this answer nicely. Take down this question and write down. A person gets injured, blood leaks at the site of injury. How is the leakage stopped? So you have to frame a proper answer there. The leakage of the blood at the site of injury is stopped because of the process of clotting that takes place at that site. And this is brought about by the platelets present in the blood plasma. Right. Answers have to be complete. Use all the key terms necessary for that answer. Check the mark for which you are writing an answer. 1 mark here. So accordingly you have to write. 3 marks here. So accordingly the description. 5 marks here. Accordingly with diagram. Of course with the diagram. What is the question asking you? Accordingly you have to always answer. (26) is already done. After that, page number 158, 10, sub number 8. Once you are done with this, the last question that we are going to do, 158, 10A. What is double circulation? Did we write down the definition? Double circulation you may get for 1 mark, 3 mark, 5 marks. For 5 marks, the entire process to explain. Did we write down the flowchart the other day? So you know the entire process, the scheme of blood circulation in our body. What is double circulation? For 1 mark, definition also you will be asked, description for 3 marks, or entire process with the diagram, etc. for 5 marks also. But what is the definition we write for double circulation? Did we write this definition? I will only give you the definition. The next part you will. Why is it necessary? I told you a number of times. Let me see how you are able to frame your answer. Describe double circulation. Now say this is a 3 mark question supposed to be. Describe double circulation in human. If it is only why is it necessary, only that part, then that it will be not less than 3 marks. But this question has got 2 parts. How are the arteries and veins different? So arteries, veins differences, 3 differences to write down. Why is it necessary? That part, another 2 marks. So it's a full 5 mark question. Describe double circulation. The definition, if you get, what should you write? Write down. वैसे तो describe अगर है तो पूरा concept describe करना है with the flow chart. That flow chart what you have drawn, that part you have to describe. What is double circulation, right? The process of circulation of blood. 158, 10A. The process of circulation of blood in 4-chambered hearts. Process of circulation of blood in 4-chambered heart. Process of circulation of blood in 4-chambered heart, in which deoxygenated blood from the body enters the right side of the heart.
Enters the right
Side of the heart and pumped towards the lungs. To get oxygenated. Lungs. To get oxygenated, which again enters left side of the heart, which again enters the left side of the heart, and pumped out into the aorta, and pumped out into the aorta to reach the body parts. Pumped out into the aorta to reach the body parts. So this is the basic concept. Double circulation kya hai? What is the concept of double circulation? Every time the blood entering the heart twice. From the body to the right side is deoxygenated. From the right side go away to the lungs. What is happening at the lungs? Oxygenation. Again come back to the left side of the heart. And from the left side go back way to the body parts again. Why is it necessary? Now another 2 lines to write. Why is it necessary? What should you write? What did I tell you always? This was the first concept that I started with. Why is it necessary? What is the benefit we enjoy? Because that we have 4-chambered heart and a concept of double circulation. What is the benefit?
We also have oxygen.
Benefit क्या है?
तो ऑक्सीजन
ऑक्सीजन हमारे हार्ट के अंदर मिक्सिंग ऑफ द ब्लड नहीं हो रहा है. So what is the benefit? I always told you earlier also. Oxygen and deoxygenated blood mix नहीं हो रहा है inside the heart. So what is the benefit we enjoy then? What is the benefit we are enjoying? 4-chambered heart में right side and left side का blood कभी भी mix नहीं होता है. Deoxygenated and oxygenated blood is never getting mixed. बेनिफिट क्या है? What did I told you every time?
More ATP is produced
Because
because the cellular
more ATP is produced, तो ATP कैसे ज्यादा ATP क्यों कैसे फॉर्म हो रहा है?
cellular respiration is encouraged with high oxygen.
हाँ, सेलुलर रेस्पिरेशन ज्यादा हो रहा है because oxygen supply is more. Now see for that fish, what is happening in the heart of the fish? Oxygenated, deoxygenated blood हर बार mix हो जा रहा है. फिश को ज्यादा मिल रहा है? नहीं मिल रहा है. So that's the reason, as I compare the human with the fish, the body of the fish has got less energy. Energy release much lesser है in the cells of the fish as compared to the human, as compared to the bird. Why like that? Because birds as well as human, as well as mammals, we all have four-chambered heart. We all have four-chambered heart, so the oxygen supply to the tissues is much more. From the left ventricle, where will the blood go?
The left ventricle to the lungs.
From the left ventricle, where will the blood go?
To the lung.
Not to the lungs, not to the body parts.
No.
To the body parts. कैसे? कौन से vessels use होके?
Arteries.
Arteries. Arteries के पहले aorta. याद है? So now the blood from the left ventricle going to the aorta, aorta के बाद arteries, arteries के बाद body parts. तो हर एक body cell को adequate amount of oxygen they are able to get because the blood in the left side of the heart is purely oxygenated. अब अगर septum नहीं होता, then what would have happened?
The oxygenated and deoxygenated
Would have been mixed. तो क्या होता? अगर oxygenated हमारे heart में अगर septum नहीं होता, then what would have happened? Will get mixed. तो mix अगर हो जाएगा, then what is the problem? So heart से जो blood tissues में जाएगा, that blood will it have a large amount of oxygen at that time? Supply of oxygen बहुत कम हो जाएगी. Supply of oxygen अगर कम हो जाएगा, then release of energy भी बहुत कम हो जाएगा. What is the process of breakdown of the glucose in the cells with the help of oxygen known as? बॉडी सेल्स में ग्लूकोज का ब्रेकडाउन होना विद द हेल्प ऑफ ऑक्सीजन, इसको क्या बोलते हैं? व्हाट टाइप ऑफ रेस्पिरेशन इट इज? सेल्यूलर रेस्पिरेशन. मोड ऑफ रेस्पिरेशन क्या है? सेल्यूलर रेस्पिरेशन तो प्रोसेस है, मोड क्या है? टाइप क्या है? मैं तेरे को ना अभी मार डालने वाली. You'll have to either say you are not concentrating. You are not concentrating at all. What is that mode of respiration known as? Aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration क्या है? What is the meaning of aerobic respiration? Aerobic respiration मतलब more oxygen मिलना और more energy release करना. That is the basic concept that we study. So what is the answer that you will write? Why is it necessary? Double circulation हमारे body में जो हो रहा है, why is it necessary? How is it beneficial? What is the significance? Answer same है. What will you write? This will ensure. ये जो process है, इससे ये confirm है कि the body cells will always get a higher amount of oxygen, and the release of energy from the body cell also will become adequate to satisfy our energy requirement. देखो, why is it necessary? Double circulation confirms. Double circulation confirms. Why after writing every answer you are closing down the book? Confirms the supply of large amount of oxygen, to the body cells or body tissues, which in turn breaks down glucose completely, which in turn breaks down glucose completely to release adequate amount of energy. Adequate amount of energy. आया समझ में? The concepts has to be clear, otherwise assertion questions you will be confused. You will not be able to answer them correctly. Now, the last part of transportation that we have to understand is transportation in plants. To understand transportation in plants, we first have to come across that the plants have two types of tissues. What are those two types of tissues? Xylem and phloem. Talk about xylem and phloem. What is the function of the xylem? The function of the xylem is transport of
Water and minerals.
water and minerals. Transport of water and minerals. The function of xylem is transport of water and minerals. What is the function of phloem? Function of phloem is transport of soluble food. Transport of soluble food. The food that is formed by the process of photosynthesis. Now, to understand the basic concept of transport by xylem, if we try understanding what are the steps and what are the processes, I would start right from the level of the root cells. I understand these are all root cells, say suppose. These are the xylem tube. This is the xylem tube that we are talking about. And in this xylem tube in the roots, the xylem tube in the roots are connected to the root cells. Which cells are these? These are the root cells. Now, the root cells, they have got some special feature. The root cells have got some special feature. What are those? Every particular root cell, if I see this single root cell, to understand the root cell, it is a plant cell definitely to understand. So these root cell has got the vacuole. Do you remember? And what does the vacuole contain? The sap. What is sap? The water which has the dissolved minerals. This sap in the root cell is extremely hypertonic. Do you remember what is the meaning of the word hypertonic when I say? It's सीखा है ना last year? Hypertonic का क्या मतलब था? If I talk about one cell, try understanding. I talk about this is a plant cell, this is a root cell. Now with this root cell, I am understanding that this root cell has got the vacuole and the vacuole has got the sap. What is sap? Sap means water and minerals. The sap has water and minerals. But I am comparing this plant cell. I am comparing this root cell with the soil water. Now I am comparing this root cell with the soil water, and I get to see that when I compare this root cell with the soil water has large amount of water. Now just compare and see here. Try understanding. I'm trying to make things very simple, very, very easy to understand. What is this? I'm talking about the sap. And what is this I'm talking about? This is the soil water. Majorly now I'm talking about two types of molecules. This is perhaps the type of solute I'm talking about, and this blue dots I'm talking about water. कहाँ पे water ज़्यादा दिखा रही हूँ मैं?
Soil.
आ रहा है समझ में? When you compare the sap, now this is always the same. Always. Compare the plant cells and the soil water. The soil water is always, or the soil always has a large amount of water as compared to the sap. So I would say that the sap is hypertonic. The sap is hypertonic and the soil water is hypotonic. तो simple concept जो पहले भी तुम लोगों ने सीखा था, that is hypotonic मतलब something or a medium that is dilute. And hypertonic मतलब a medium that is concentrated. तो अगर ये situation है, so what should be the direction of the water movement? From the soil to the cells. From the soil to the cell. Which process are we talking about? Transpiration. Osmosis. Osmosis. What is the definition of osmosis?
Then higher water to high concentration flow
Black
from a
Panther.
semi-permeable.
Jago. What is the definition of osmosis?
Transformation of substance from a
अच्छा व्योम ना व्योम हाँ हाँ व्योम ये है अच्छा Bhavya and Pareen. I asked him.
I was not telling you that. I just looked back and
प्यार कुछ ज्यादा नहीं हो रहा है
आंसर नहीं दे रहा
हाँ Pareen बोलो movement of molecules from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. Which process are we talking about? We are talking about osmosis. We are talking about osmosis. So what is the definition? Movement of water molecules from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration through a membrane bud, and this is the semi-permeable membrane that we are talking about. Semi-permeable membrane. You had studied that, no? In the 9th standard also you had studied semi-permeable membrane. इसको semi-permeable क्यों कहा जाता है? It allows some molecules to pass through and does not allow the molecules, some molecules to pass through. That's why semi-permeable. So here I am talking about that, yes, this cell in that cell is the same thing. I'm talking about the same type of cell. That cell and this cell is the same. So if that is the situation, there is so much of water surrounding, and since there is so much of water surrounding, what will be the behavior of the root cell? Will it absorb or it will give away? It will absorb. So that is how the water molecule enters the root cell. What is the most important feature? Why the root cells are absorbing water? Because the sap is always concentrated as compared to the surrounding water. Sap is always concentrated as compared to the surrounding water. That's the reason water molecule constantly entering. That's the reason water molecule is constantly entering. Now that the water molecule enters, what will now next happen? ये जो water molecule यहाँ पे fill हो जा रहा है, after some time the vehicle is tight filled with water. अब क्या होगा? The water will now drain to the next cell. इसमें भरेगा. ये fill हो गया. The water will now fill up here and then go to the cells of the xylem tube. The xylem I am showing you in the form of a tube because the xylem made up of 4 types of cells ultimately form a tube-like arrangement inside the plant, connecting the roots to the leaves. Yes or no? The entire xylem or the phloem that we know is the arrangement of cells. How many cells? Xylem also made up of 4 types of cells. Phloem also made up of 4 types of cells. And these cells individually, they form a tube-like arrangement through which the water constantly keeps on moving. Now I talk about the xylem first of all to understand that how the process of transportation of the water happens. So this is the first step I'm talking about at the level of the root cells. Which is that process? At the level of the root cells, the first process is, the first step is osmosis. The water has entered. Now that the water has entered the root cells, every cell fills up, pushes the water to the next cell. Every cell fills up, pushes the water to the next cell, and that is how the water would enter into the xylem tube. Try understanding. The water now enters into the xylem tube. So the xylem tube is filled with water. But there must be some force because of which the water moves up. I'm talking about plants like the palm and the banyan and the coconut. They are so tall. So there must be some pulling force also because of which the water can rise up such great heights. No? Say suppose if I try to understand, there are many factors related, but I talk only certain factors as per your syllabus. So now, which are some of the most important forces which allow the water run to that great height? Number one is, we have to understand that there is one process known as the loss of water in the form of water vapor. carried out by the upper parts of the plants, the aerial parts of the plants known as the leaves. And what is this now known as? This is now known as transpiration. What is transpiration? So now, after we understand the concept of osmosis, both of you, I'll make you stand and get lost from the class. Once you're attentive, doing good in the class, I'm there always with you. The moment you start behaving nonsense, I'll just open the door and throw you out. Like non-living beings, straight away throw you out of the class. I'm telling you for the second time. एक और बार तुमने मुझे chance दिया, I will throw you out of the class. I'm explaining here and you are doing nonsense. Now, what is the second part I'm talking about? The second part is, look into the entire xylem tube. What will happen? This xylem tube from time to time constantly losing water in the form of water vapor. What is transpiration? Loss of water in the form of water vapor. But as a result of the loss of water in the form of water vapor, I should also understand this way that this xylem tube, what is happening to this xylem tube now? This xylem tube is becoming empty, you know, for example. Say suppose we understand this way that the moment there is a loss of water in the form of water vapor, some amount of water lost. So there is a vacant space created here. Immediately, this vacant space is filled up. How? This entire column of water will start moving up. But are these water molecules moving single? No, they don't move single molecules, but all in the form of a chain. They will all move in the form of a chain because water molecules always remains attached to each other. Every single water molecules, they remain attached to each other, resulting in the formation of a chain like this. So now, if that is true, then next what will happen? Yes, this particular space is now filled up. The moment this particular space is filled up, a space will be created here then, but a space will be created here.
It will be filled with the roots.
This process, correct? So what I told you first, that the moment there is transpiration, the xylem tube suffers from a loss of water. There's an empty space created in the xylem tube. But just in seconds, this empty space is filled up because this entire column of water moving up. But now that the column of water moving up, an empty space will be created here. This empty space to be filled up and another pulling force is required. Meaning, the more this transpiration, or now that the process of transpiration has happened, what will happen? This empty space that is created, I may say that this vacuum that is created, what will happen? This empty space has to be filled up. But how this empty space fills up? Because of a pulling force. Now let me just tell you, because of transpiration, there is a force or a pressure, or say a pulling force or a suction force is generated at the level of these xylem tubes down there near the roots. And what is this pulling force known as? This pulling force is known as transpirational pull. Now, more the transpiration, more faster will be the absorption. Less the transpiration, lesser or very slowly will be this particular process of absorption. But how the absorption? More and more pulling force, very fast, this water will rush down and fill up the entire tube. But for that, of course, the soil has to be water. That also, of course, one criteria that we understand. But now, is there any relation now that I talk about transpiration followed by transpirational pull? And now I say that yes, this is continuous a process. We had started earlier understanding what is osmosis at the level of the root cells. Now I say this would be a continuous process to come across. What are these continuous processes? First, if I consider transpiration has happened, which was creating an empty space here. This empty space immediately filled up. How filled up? Because of a suction pull or a force. Where is this force generated? At the level of the xylem tubes, and immediately the water rushes in. But why does the water rush in? What did I tell you? Why is the water rushing in? High concentration of the sap inside and so much of water outside. What did we name this dilute medium in the soil? Hypotonic, hypertonic. So ये जो process है ये समझ में आया? So now that we are talking about what is the relation, how is the transport of the water and the minerals brought about? The transport of the water and the minerals brought about by this. It is quite similar like, say suppose how you all drink the juice with your straw. Say suppose I talk about that you have a Tetra pack of juice and you are sipping the juice constantly with your straw pipes. The more you take in the more you start sipping faster, the faster will be the juice filling up at the other end. So this end is inside the or in contact with the juice and this is inside your mouth. You take the sip slow, little amount of juice fills it. You take it fast, fast it fills it. The moment you have taken the sip, is it not an empty space getting created and which is filling up? Yes, the same thing is happening here. Can you now tell me, if you have understood this, can you now tell me when will this particular process be faster? Transpiration?
At the summer.
Summertime. Like now. When the air is hot, air is dry, this process is faster. So if this process is faster, will this process be faster?
Yes.
Yes. So that's the reason we come across during the summertime. The soil also gets dried up much faster because the plants are also absorbing so much of water. And it is also during the summertime, during the afternoon time, if you sit under the shade of a tree, do you feel cool? Why? So much of water lost in the form of water vapor. So surrounding the plant, there is so much of water vapor which is giving the cooling effect. What are the types of cells that form the xylem? Do you remember the types of cells that form the xylem? Oh my God! Xylem I'm talking about. Xylem, parenchyma, fibers, tracheids. So these names also should be there in your answer. So what are the types of cells we talk about? If it is the xylem has got 4 types of cells. What are the types of cells of the xylem? Xylem has got tracheids, xylem has got vessels, xylem has got xylem parenchyma, and xylem has got xylem fibers. What about the phloem then this side? Phloem has got sheath tubes. Phloem has got companion cells and phloem has got parenchyma and fibers same like the xylem. Parenchyma and fibers same like the xylem. So now the names of these cells only to mention in your answer, you don't have to describe the cells at all. So first of all we are talking about the formation or the process of transport of the water minerals by the way of the xylem. Now, what about the phloem then? I talk about that this particular leaves of the plant. Every particular leaf, what type of a process are they carrying out here? They are undergoing a process known as photosynthesis. What happens in the process of photosynthesis? You know now already. Photosynthesis results in the formation of glucose. Photosynthesis results in the formation of glucose. But now, if I say that this glucose is the plant transporting food in the form of glucose?
Yes.
No? No? We had already studied photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is over, no? How is the food transported? What did we study? Sucrose. How is the food transported? The plant produces food in the form of glucose. Glucose immediately gets converted to sucrose. So the plant is actually transporting food in the form of sucrose. But later, sucrose is stored, but the sucrose gets converted into starch, and which is a steady form. Remember, we had answered one question. Why is it difficult to test glucose in a plant cell or in the leaf? But the iodine test that we do is for the starch. Why can't we test glucose with the iodine test? Because glucose gets immediately converted to sucrose and then starch. That's the reason we cannot, very difficult to test glucose. Glucose एक बड़ा छोटा सा ही एक temporary phase रहता है. It is formed and immediately getting converted to something else. It is unstable. तो starch के जैसे ये stable नहीं है. That's the reason we are not able to test with the help of iodine the presence of glucose in the leaf cells. But testing the starch is very easy because that's a stable compound present in the leaf cells. Understood? We already answered that question, I think so. So now that I'm asking you that how will the leaf produce the glucose by the process of photosynthesis. Now next one, sucrose. So what will happen to this sucrose? The sucrose will now enter by the group of cells. Now the sucrose molecule. Now if I talk about the phloem, something more to understand. How is the phloem arranged? Always remember the phloem is on either sides of the xylem. If this is the xylem I draw, then this is the phloem I should always understand. The xylem is always in the center, the phloem on either side. The xylem on the center, so if I'm talking about the phloem, this is another phloem this side going. So these are the phloem cells that I'm talking about, the phloem tube that I'm talking about, and the xylem in the center. What about the molecules? The sucrose molecules. But how would the sucrose molecules get transported by the way of the phloem? The phloem cells are also plant cells, no? Talk about every single cell of the phloem. Every single cell of the phloem will also have the vacuole, will also have the sap, and the molecules of the sucrose will all get dissolved, and that is how from one cell to another they are getting transported. So how, that's the reason we always write. See that the definition also that I've written down, the function that you write. What does phloem transport? Soluble food. It's not in the form of any crystals or pellets. It is always in the soluble form. Always soluble form. Soluble way. Soluble in the phloem of in the sap of the phloem cells. In the sap of the phloem cells. Yes, the process of transport again is more or less the same from one cell to another, as we talk about water. But there's a difference when I'm talking about the movement of the water by the xylem and the movement of the food by the phloem. What is it? If I talk about the movement of the food, now these are certain cells. These cells can transport the food this way also by the phloem tube, this way also, and this way also. The network of phloem tubes which are there in the plant from one particular region, wherever, from one particular leaf, the food that is formed. The food formed in one particular leaf by the network of the phloem tubes can travel in all possible directions, sideways, upwards, and downwards also. But if I have to explain for the movement of the water, what should I say? Can the movement of the water happen in all directions? No, only unidirectional from the root to the upper parts. Unidirectional only from the root to the upper parts of the plant. But talk about the movement of the phloem, talk about the movement of the food in the phloem. Movement of the food in the phloem is in all directions. At the same time, when we are talking about movement of the food by the way of the phloem, movement of the food by the way of the phloem requires lesser amount of energy. And since we are talking about the water movement upwards, it requires, the movement of the food by the phloem requires lesser energy, I said. And if I talk about the movement of the water by the xylem, it always requires a higher amount of energy against gravity. Yeah? So it requires a large amount of energy. So for the concept of transporting plants, what are some of the basic concepts that you have to remember? What are the tissues involved? The cells, to just mention them in your answer whenever you get, explain the process of transport of water minerals by the xylem. So for that, you are explaining about the osmosis, you are explaining about transpiration, you are explaining about transpirational pull, and explaining this process. Mentioning the words, mentioning the types of the cells of the xylem, you did not mention in detail about the cell types and their functions separately. No need of that. Only the processes for xylem. For phloem, if at all you get, yes, first of all you have to talk about the function of the phloem, what are the cells of the phloem. Then you straight away go to the concept of photosynthesis, producing the glucose, getting converted into sucrose, and the sucrose molecules dissolved into the cell sap. And how do they get transported? In all directions, utilizing minimum amount of energy. So these are the points that you have to write on. Is this clear? Yes. So remember the basic differences when we are talking about the movement of the food by the xylem and the phloem. There are some questions also, but the specific NCERT questions are already answered. I think already you have seen where the answers are. Already you have seen, no? All of you have seen where the answers are here in the volume. Check your NCERT questions are answered in the volume. I think at the back pages somewhere. You'll have to check for the page numbers. Now, let us start with, see there in page 159 also, you can, page 159.
There are questions not answered.
Which one?
There are answers. There are answers.
Which one?
That's for another chapter.
Which one you are talking about, not answered?
All these questions they will
And NCERT. NCERT you are talking about? NCERT answers are at the back. At the back.
177.
NCERT answers are at the back.
Answers on page
देखा?
77.
177 में है. That you have to question by question you have to find out. Now next is page 159. Look into page 159. 5 questions. I'll give you as homework. Pick those questions first.
Page number?
159. Page 159. 5 questions.
Right now.
No, homework. Homework. Number 1. Page 159. Review questions. Did you see? Review questions. Did you see?
Yes.
From there. Just take 5 questions that you will try answering.
Any?
I will say.
Any 5.
Can we choose?
Oh, हर चीज में तुमको चॉइस चाहिए. Page number 159. The first question. Number 10. Number 10. Number 2. Number 2. Number 10. Number 2. Number 10. Go to 160. From here, again, I'm giving you a few set of questions, quite a number of them solved, and the rest, all of them you are going to go through. 160. Question number 15. Number 16. 15, 16. Number 28. What done?
5 questions done.
एक आध ज्यादा लिखोगे तो
चलिए आपने 5 पता चल याद से.
number, which one I told you?
28.
28. 31. 43. 44, I gave you the answer already. 43.
31 and 43.
हाँ. वो नीचे तक सोच ही नहीं पा रहे कि मैम ने देख कैसे दिया वहां से क्वेश्चंस. 5 हो गया. Number 64, 161, 64. कितना हो गया? 161. कितना हो गया अभी? So sweet.
नेक्स्ट क्लास में
नहीं आएगा. कल अगले दिन नहीं रहेगा, उसके बाद तो रहेगा ना।
मैम जस्ट वन मोर क्वेश्चन मैम।
क्यों देखो कि चाहिए इतना क्वेश्चन?
अरे मैं 10 हो जाएगा, 9 और नहीं, 8 हो गया। 8 60 वाला 64।
फरीद डिसाइड करेगा और देना है कि नहीं देना है। वो तो ना ही बोले, वो बोलेगा कि इतना भी मत दो, सब डिलीट करो। 161 फटाफट करो। 161 कौन सा बोला?
अरे 8 थोड़ी हुआ,
64
8 क्वेश्चन हो गए हैं।
59
8 हुआ है।
8 हुआ है।
सी
59
10 15 16 28 31 43
15 16 28 31 43 64।
ये कब
59 59
मैं बोला ना 9
मैं
हुआ।
तो सुनते नहीं हैं।
59 भी 59 हो गया।
ये तो इजी हो जाएगा।
नंबर 65 65। अब ये सारे क्वेश्चंस क्या डन किया? हो गया ना?
आपने 5 बोला, हमने आप 5 बोला।
मुझे ज्यादा पढ़ना अच्छा लगता है, तुम लोगों को पढ़ाना अच्छा लगता है। जितना ज्यादा पढ़ोगे उतना मार्क्स मिलेगा। Listen now. This 10 questions you will neatly write down on the notebook, question and answer. खाली answer लिख के लाओगे, that particular student will write down the answer questions again another 5 times. वो number लिख के नहीं लिखना है answer. Write down the question and the answer. Keep it ready. These are questions. Directly you will not get the answer in the book. So answer them. If you don't know the answer, don't write anything. Better write with pencil. And again, we will discuss it in the class. But if you are absent.
Then next to next comment double.
Meaning, how many of you are going for holiday next week? Superb. How many days?
15 days.
I'm going to go
15 days, 10 standard में. अब किसका बर्थडे है, किसका वेडिंग है? 15 days का प्रोग्राम है.
मैम रिहर्सल होगा मेरा.
रिहर्सल 15 days का?
रिहर्सल ऑनलाइन सीखती हूँ ना, बीच में गैप है रिहर्सल परफॉर्मेंस में ऑनलाइन. Seriously, I didn't take deep breaths. Seriously,
अब तुमको क्या प्रॉब्लम है?
मैं इसको भी जाने वाला
मनाली जा रहा
मैं मनाली जा रही हूँ.
I'm coming with me.
Who?
Me.
भाई है.
मैंने पहले दिन बोला था don't go for any long
No, not long.
holiday.
only 3 days.
1 week, not long.
That's why
1 week घूम के आओगे वहाँ पे पूरा.
I'll return on Saturday.
I'm not interested when you are returning.
So, 1 week.
1 week और उसके बाद hangover और 1 week. तो यहाँ पे जो हम लोग पढ़ाएंगे तुम तो तब मनाली में रहोगे.
Ma'am, online live.
Dare anybody join online?
I will.
कोई नहीं ज्वाइन करो. मनाली जाना है तो मनाली जाके नाचो वहाँ पे. कोई भी यहाँ पे
Ma'am, पढ़ने वाले स्टूडेंट्स पढ़ेंगे.
मनाली जाके पढ़ोगे. Don't disturb me online. कोई भी online ज्वाइन नहीं करो.
Ma'am, see, if I don't understand, so I'll type in the chat box.
And do you think I will explain them or I'll look at your nonsense chat box here? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not
We will
going
not
to do
listen.
anything. You want to listen, you have to come and sit in this classroom. Okay, now all of you have to show me your diagrams. Show me your diagrams and show me your work. And others can start with these questions. If you come across doubts, you may clarify right now. I wanted to start with the next part of the chapter, excretion. Let me just go through your diagrams first. And then we'll come across. We'll start with the next part. May I also? Why you have to help him out? All of you will start drawing this diagram. As you finish, I will correct your notebook. See that you have finished the other diagram also. Huh?
Ma'am, is this there in the textbook?
Yes, very much.
And this is kidney.
Yes. Already you are more used to all those earphones and all. No?
This looks like alcohol.
Smoking but scared.
More talking, finish up your diagrams and see that the rest of the diagrams that I asked for is over. You'll have to show me now.
रेखा मैम के पास जाना है
Write down the next head, excretion. We are going to understand the process the next day. Just complete the diagram. Yes. Adeline, are you okay now?
That was not me, that was something different. That was not me, that was
Shamagrita. Her name is Shamagrita.
तो प्लास्टर
That is Shamagrita, not Samagrita. Yes, get in fast. Because my daughter's name is also the same.
Ma'am, I've seen you once in school when you come to proper office.
अच्छा योग सारा बैठे
CBSE or ICC?
ICC.
Which same standard, 10th standard.
No, my dear, not 10th standard. 10th standard घर और बाहर होते तो मैं पागल ही हो जाती.
तो फिर कौन से स्टार्ट?
Chalo now. Who is? How did you go there?
He told me to
Chalo fast.
come ahead.
You are comfortable. I am not.
Keep on talking. Ma'am, we need to write this.
Right, please.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
How to write?
You start your work. Start your work. For the kidney, also remember the right and the left kidney.
That is also important.
Everything is inverted. Now why is it called dorsal?
Dorsal aorta because it is going from the upper side of the body. This diagram is compared to the heart, very simple. See that all of you draw it neat and nice.
Yes.
Can you give one extra pen?
This one.
So many members of the
No.
It varies person to person.
मैंने क्या बोला था तुमको ब्रेक के बाद मैं चेक करने वाली हूँ What is she doing now?
This year
She completed her 12th, no?
she
is a part. She was a very, very, very attentive, very nice girl. Very studious.
she's a good teacher, right?
So this girl, she's so good in drawings. See her diagram.
Excuse me. Can you draw?
Inspiration लेना है सब नहीं हाथ नहीं लेना है
किसने बनाया?
You made it.
Good one. I can contact.
interior designer. Contact me.
I see. I also.
What she makes him a pen. Finish.
Yes,
Right. Boys, shut your mouth and do your work.
Ma'am, this
You can finish. Complete करो. Human body you need not need. Without that also respiratory system without the human body also you can do.
Yes. Actually, I would have made, but because of this, I'm a very great artist.
Maths.
चलो.
तो आज बहुत मजाक कर रहा है, मैम भी मजाक करेगी तो सीधा भाग ही
किसने बोला ये बड़ी ने बोला
वो ये भी सर है you also want contract
This diagram you will definitely get to draw.
छोटू वाला बोलो
भाई सो
लैडर पढ़ने आया होगी
वो कितना तुम
आपने चश्मा ऐसे बैठा नहीं है
नहीं चलेगा, you do your work. फटाफट डायग्राम अच्छा बना के दिखाओ.
this one one second always speaking osmosis
Oh sir, will you stop and do your work?
who's bilateral where we want it
X
ऐसे इंटेस्टाइन में डाइजेशन तो नहीं होगा.
Ma'am, one problem in my diagram. There is no labeling.
Done, ma'am.
प्रैक्टिस करो. हैंडराइटिंग अच्छा नहीं है अभी भी. 9-10 मंथ से इसको सुधारो थोड़ा सा. जो भी तुम्हारे स्कूल टीचर्स हैं प्रैक्टिस करो बेटा. प्रैक्टिस यू डिड नॉट शो मी. हाँ
right आपको nutrition
practice the diagrams all of it.
मैम एक्चुअली nutrition है ना वो हाथों पे नहीं
मैम एक्चुअली मेरा छाती बहुत बड़ा है मैम सी मैं छाती
Practice करो diagrams slowly practice करो.
नहीं इसका क्या है पहले का तो लिखा हुआ है
ठीक है.
बाकी बता पीछे
Respiratory system कहाँ है?
सॉरी ब्रो एक्चुअली
ये फ्लैग बनाया है एक कंप्लीट वो सी
2-3 हफ्ता नहीं. Even if I gave you 1 week, 7 days is enough time. 7 days is
मैंने
enough.
तीन दिन उनकी बेटा वाला 2 दिन किया
I don't care.
5 दिन तो
और 2 दिन बच्चे में 6-7
तो 2 दिन में स्कूल का
और
होमवर्क
उसमें एक दिन पे ट्रॉमा हो गया
हाँ एक दिन मेरे को ट्रॉमा आया था क्योंकि मेरे साथ भूखा है एक दिन में डिप्रेशन में
शुभम ने तेरे ऊपर क्या
Okay.
हाँ वो शुभम उल्टी है का
शुभम हो
So, how did you get?
I have done one
ये ही से
हाँ
ये नहीं पागल
हाँ, ये
ये लाभ हो गया
जी आई मैंने वो लिख दिया
वही मैं ना ये
सबके ऊपर नहीं अरे ऊपर ही क्या था बता रहा था भाई
अरे उसको तो क्या गले का है
मैम क्लास में ऊपर की बात करो
भाई बायो में क्या उल्टी की
भाई देख
वो
उसको
है
क्या हुआ उसका तो डायरेक्शन लगा वो कंप्लीट
अरे यूजर 99 का तो ऐसा ही तो वही ना
इट्स व्हाट दैट प्रॉब्लम
मैम आई डोंट मैम
बहुत अच्छा एग्जांपल है Actually, in our body, no part is that linear तो कोई भी part नहीं है.
सामने वाला है
What nonsense you are showing me?
What?
This is yours.
No, this is not
50% के बाद नीचे जिसको भी मिलेगा in the first test will not sit in this class. आप मिलेगा
75
मैम रेस्पिरेटरी नॉट मैम
एलिमेंट्री खत्म नहीं हुआ तो रेस्पिरेटरी कैसे कब करोगे? When are you going to practice those diagrams? तुम्हारा diagram
लाइन एंड ड्रॉ का कहता
This you did today, no?
पीछे थोड़ा सा
हाँ, ये है ना?
मैम we can show you
और ये क्या है?
now physics
For physics. First class itself, I told you have to have proper notebooks.
sorry
देखो सीधी सी बात है तुम्हारा सिंसियरिटी ऐसा है तो मार्क्स भी वैसा ही मिलेगा जैसा सिंसियरिटी जितना वैसे ही मार्क्स मिलने वाला है प्लीज कंप्लीट योर डायग्राम्स नीट
I'm
एंड
done
और आगे का है कुछ डायग्राम्स द डाइजेस्टिव सिस्टम रेस्पिरेटरी सिस्टम किया लग जाता है डायग्राम बनाने आता है दैट्स द रीजन आई एम टेलिंग यू डायग्राम बनाना नहीं आता है why would I waste so much of time which you are drawing the diagrams all these four diagrams are important boys most of you have not shown me your work next day when break you have to show me anybody have done with any of the diagrams show your work you also did not show me no previous two diagrams thank you now complete this diagram all done
after repossession
the diagram digestive system and respiratory system very simple that's why I had asked you to complete on your own so to practice just 5-6 times you practice you will be able to understand now that you know the part this is right auricle left auricle this pulmonary artery aorta and you should know the positions how to start so that's the reason I have drawn in part step by step hey concern all of you are done with this one urinary bladder urinary bladder urinary bladder urinary bladder urinary bladder yeah. We just start with this concept all of you are done with this diagram now when we talk about excretion now remember here we are talking about the excretory system what is the introduction of this concept this is the last part of the chapter life process we have already studied nutrition we have already studied respiration transportation and now the basic concept of excretion now that we talk about excretion how the process of excretion and filtration excretion here just after the concept of body fluid and blood we now try understanding that the plasma that we have talked about the plasma what is plasma the liquid part of the blood this liquid part of the blood is supposed to have a whole lot of minerals and ions and proteins and hormones and on top of that the waste substances in it a lot of waste substances that will be released by the body cells the body cells are not only releasing carbon dioxide and energy the body cells are also releasing a whole lot of waste substances now where does this waste substance go deposit into the blood the waste substances from the body cells are deposited in the blood and the blood dissolves almost all of them Now that I talk about the waste substances with reference to excretion, what is the definition? What type of substances to be excreted out? What are the excretory organs that we have in our body? So now, if I have to define what is meant by excretion, what is the definition? What is the definition of excretion? What should we write down? The process of releasing out of the waste substances by the filtration of the blood. So if I have to understand what is the definition of excretion, is it the same as the way of intestines? No, by the way of the intestines, when we are talking about the release of the waste substances, that is the waste substances after digestion. Here we are not talking about digestion at all. The filtration of the blood and then the release of the waste substances, that is what is excretion. Let us write down the definition. Excretion. What is the definition? Excretion. The release of waste substances. The release of the waste substances of the body. The release of waste substances of the body by the filtration of the blood, by the filtration of the blood, by the filtration of the blood, by the way of kidneys. Filtration of the blood by the way of kidneys. That is what is excretion. So excretion will always be dealing with filtration of the blood. Complete this diagram. The next class will
Yes,
take up
ma'am.
this part of the chapter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next class, what you will do?
We'll complete this chapter. We'll complete.
Let's go.
This is my book, no? This is my book. This is her.
अभी मार्कर तो पकड़ ही सकता है मार्कर पकड़
आता है सोशल एंजाइटी
पेंसिल